Number Data Derivatives podcast. I'm here with the lovely Laura Vidiella. Laura, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So, Laura, you are most recently at LedgerPrime, but you've had an extensive
hmm
career in the crypto vol space. And so I'm really excited to have you on. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of years now. And I think the listeners would love to know about sort of your background and so where you've worked and what you see in crypto vol and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Where to start? This is one of those questions that I never know where exactly to start. But I guess academically, my background is finance and CS. And before crypto, I worked at an environmental commodities market maker slash broker house. And funny enough, actually, both markets, crypto and environmental commodities, have a lot of similarities, I guess, from like the commodity perspective. But yeah, so I was there for a little bit, and then I moved to Boston for grad school, and that was around 2017 when I also started getting involved with the crypto space. Now, I don't know if at the beginning the financial side was what attracted me the most, but it is true that at some point in the past, I was trying to go a little bit down the international relations side, and I wanted to be an ambassador and whatnot, and then I was very interested in like the more like the financial side of like being an ambassador, I guess.
Hmm.
And that's when I discovered crypto and went down the rabbit hole of allowing basic financial access for everyone, and especially with like when you read the Bitcoin white paper and you compare it to like what happened in 2008, which is great that we're talking about this right now,
Yeah.
given the events that happened over the past 1-2 weeks. But yeah, so that's how after a bit and like looking for different roles, I actually got the opportunity at LedgerX. And that one actually resonated a little bit with my personal mission of like allowing basic financial access
Hmm.
more than anything, because LedgerX had and still has the mini contracts, right? So, and also crypto options do not have the 100x multiplier that equities have for each one of the options contracts that you buy or sell.
Hmm.
So, and back then, that was when Bitcoin was like between 5K, 10K, right? So buying a contract could have meant anything like a few cents or just a few dollars.
Hmm.
And it allowed like smaller players also to start taking some positional direction within crypto options. So yeah, so that was my first role in crypto, operations manager at LedgerX. It was great, especially from the perspective of working for a regulated platform in the US.
Hmm.
For both retail and institutional players, you learn a lot. And on the operational side, of course, you get to see kind of a little bit front to end. From there, I joined the Paradigm team as their first salesperson in the US, I guess. And was lovely. Was more of a general institutional global perspective, right? As opposed to the US, as opposed to LedgerX, which was only the US.
Hmm.
Paradigm was more, of course, more global. And then also like working with larger exchanges like Deribit. So that was also great.
Yeah.
And then moved more to the market making side with LedgerPrime for the past like I think like 14, 16 months more or less. So yeah, and here we are right now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So just kind of moving back a little bit. So you got started at LedgerX, and you said you were working operations at LedgerX. For anyone who doesn't
Mm-hmm.
know, LedgerX is the main U.S. crypto options venue. And like you mentioned, they have a smaller contract multiplier, so you can trade a fraction of
Mm-hmm.
a Bitcoin, a fraction of an Ethereum. Love the LedgerX team; they're great people. So when you're doing operations at LedgerX, like what does that look like? What does that mean?
Mm-hmm. We were a very small team back then. I think it was about like 15 to 20 people.
Mm.
So that meant wearing multiple hats, from helping through sales, helping through compliance, helping through marketing. We were actually, during my time there, we run some of our first like Google ads, Facebook ads, or really trying to get our hands on anything. And there's a lot of learning there, because Google ads was such a pain, for instance, right? Like they only wanted you. Google did not understand what the CFTC is, so they were just like, you guys have to be regulated if you're a crypto exchange to advertise with us. And we're like, we are regulated, right? But they didn't really understand what like CFTC meant or what it was or like
Gee.
what those licenses, you know, apply for. So yeah, from there to also building together with Alexa Dexter, we build also like all the business intelligence side, right? Just in a way to try to understand like what are current customers doing and what do they want to see, what would they prefer. A lot of support as well, and also that was when like the platform was much smaller. Actually, during my time there, LedgerX grew like between 15 and 20x. But at the very beginning, support was nice because you were able to like really get to know each one of the customers, especially on the retail side. You connect a lot with them, and I remember you get even sometimes like very nice support messages from them saying like, "Hey guys, through trading with you for like 1-2 years, I was able to like buy a car, right, or buy my first." House or something like that, just with them, like
Oh,
taking
that's
advantage of
cool.
like whatever volatility. I mean, yeah, I'm assuming like not a mansion, of course, right? But like still, it was nice. It was a very nice experience. So that's a bit of like operations. It was more like operations for a startup, right? Especially in the crypto side, there's a lot of it to touch, especially when like things as regulation change so often. And yeah, during my time there, we also launched futures. Because LedgerX started with options only, and then futures came later. And yeah, and then they were also looking at well, we're looking at getting other sorts of like licensing and just doing a bit of research on that, and also trying to figure out how the taxation works with crypto options. So yeah, very broad, very broad.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know one of the things, because LedgerX is a regulated venue, some of the things that you could get at other exchanges overseas, such as Deribit, like portfolio margin and things like that, was always sort of a regulatory hurdle for LedgerX to provide that. And
Yeah,
so that's kind of the pluses and the minuses of going the regulated route is A, you won't get
yeah.
arrested, but B, the product offering has roadblocks.
It's actually a big of like an open discussion with that, right? Because yeah, portfolio margining, so institutional accounts on LedgerX can that I don't know if they can still get it now. I'm assuming yes, but back then portfolio netting at least, right? Between calls and puts or within like those groups separately, it would net. Margin, no, that requires an amendment of the license that they've been working on for quite long. Hopefully, fingers crossed, close to getting anything on that front. But yeah, but then there's also the conversation of some traders I believe those are probably not like Chicago traders, but more like the retail trader is a little bit upset at like their accounts getting blown up, not because of their fault, but because of third parties, right? But some people will argue that fully collateralized contracts are better than allowing margin, and then the market maker will come in and say, well, no, because that makes it harder for us to market make, especially options contracts that have you spread liquidity through many different contracts, right? It just makes it like, yeah, 5 times harder.
Yeah, that's interesting. So your next phase is at Paradigm. This is when we first met and became friends.
Yes.
Paradigm obviously is a way different sort of experience than LedgerX. So Paradigm, for those who don't know, is basically the block trading venue for all the block trades that go on Deribit. I think they do like 99% of the block trades, and they are like 30% of the volume, something like that. So maybe you could just touch on that, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Paradigm. I don't know exactly where to start, but it was great. Remember when I first started with Anand, I was actually not looking at living LedgerX. I was really happy. But when I got the opportunity to stick with him, I decided to take the call because why not, right? It's also always good to meet new people also. And when he showed me the product, it was almost like a yeah, like it's the product also sells by itself, right? It's so useful for institutional traders or any sort of like account that needs any block trade to go through. So yeah, through there I saw it was also a great opportunity for me to get to know more of like what institutions want in crypto, whether those are crypto native or the traditional ones that got into the option space over the past 12 to 18 months. And yeah, that was when I first started there. I think they only had one product, or they had just released the second product. The first one was the DRFQ, which was just very simple way between two counterparties to execute block trades.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second interface was the multi-dealer RFQ, right? And that will be more a one-to-many workflow where the counterparty blasts the request into the whole network of counterparties that the platform has, and then mostly market makers will respond with their two-way. So the second one, that product sells so easily, and I think today is probably still like the widget, I guess, the product that like traders use the most. And yeah, it was when I started, I believe there were also like something like 200, 300 counterparties, and by the time I left, there were almost like 600-700. So yeah, it
Cool.
was also a great year because that was 2021, right? So yeah, there was. I think the end of the bull market was May 19, 2021, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
From
yeah.
there, there's been like other opportunities, but that was really peak. Remember the day that Bitcoin dropped like, what was it, 50% in one day? That day I was moving into my apartment in Miami, and I had no internet yet. I just had a puppy, an 8 weeks old puppy, and the kitchen stand. So I run through all my data on my phone, trying to process all the requests for quotes that we got that day through Paradigm, and it was crazy. Yeah, that day also. I mean, that was like we had just launched I think future spreads, not directly like the interface that they have right now, but like for the multi-deal RFQ, and the volumes on the future side that day were ridiculous.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So that's a very sort of different type of flow. So if I'm thinking back to LedgerX, you're looking at retail flow, non-margin, sort of fully collateralized options trading,
Correct.
trading mini contracts. And then you go to Paradigm and you're looking at institutions basically, quoting each other as counterparties or talking to each other as counterparties to essentially
Right.
do some block trades that are settled on Deribit. And so the direct RFQ is like, let's say I'm a customer, I reach out to say Genesis Trading, I say give me a quote. But in the multi to one is I say to all the market makers, give me a quote on this thing, and people can choose to respond or not respond type of deal. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. And to put it into perspective, one trade with Paradigm was equal to a whole day of trading with LedgerX, right? And that also gives you the difference between, I guess, U.S. regulated or retail and then just like offshore accounts that can go through Deribit.
Interesting. Very cool. So then your next venture is at LedgerPrime. So LedgerPrime is, they were market makers on Paradigm, I'm sure, and I'm sure they still are, right?
Yeah.
And also,
yeah, so LedgerPrime actually was the first kind of regulated market maker on LedgerX, right? Part of the sister companies. And then early or like shortly after market making on LedgerX, that's when which was like 2016, 2017, that's when we started market making also Deribit. So I would say LedgerPrime was one of the original options market makers out there, together with QCP, Genesis. Not sure exactly when GSR came into the picture, but yeah, those were like the earliest options market makers in crypto.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that's a very interesting perspective. So LedgerPrime is both a market maker on Paradigm and LedgerX. So you've seen sort of both sides of the coin on all three venues, so to speak. And so maybe you can just maybe talk to us a little bit about that. What does market making look like versus LedgerX or Paradigm?
Very different, because also LedgerX, it is fully collateralized. And then also the number of expires available as opposed to the ones on Deribit, it's much smaller, right? Deribit, you have up to, I forget now, but maybe like 12 to 18 months out. And with LedgerX, at first it went like pretty far out, but then they shortened it to like, I think 2 quarters. So yeah, very different, especially because it's fully collateralized, but also since there's not that much volume going through, it's pretty easy to pick up as well if there's any like resting order in the order book that we might not have an algo built for that. As for Deribit, there's a lot of modeling and development behind, and I mean it's an ongoing conversation. I swear I haven't heard a single week or month where there hasn't been a conversation of like, adjusting the models that we have for like paradigm or derivative, right? Maybe also a little bit different because, of course, with derivative, when we market make directly there, you pick up like smaller volume. You pick up the retail traders also on derivative, as opposed to directly on paradigm. We're talking about like sometimes 250 to 1,000 Bitcoin at a time, or like 500 Ether to 2,000 Ether, right? And then you also set some limitations for that, because if someone requests for like 1,000 or 2,000 Bitcoin, we won't do that directly, but we'd rather like work directly with the counterparty or like agree there on a price as opposed to having directly our models do it. And this also depends on many factors. The reasons behind this: one, what is the liquidity available for us afterwards to hedge that, or two, what is just like simply liquidity out there, right? And also when a counterparty on a paradigm, when a counterparty wanted to do, let's say, like maybe 2,000, 5,000 Bitcoin at once, you work also with different market makers to make that happen, as opposed to just like have one do it, because it's very unlikely that they will do it. And also for the counterparty, they will get better pricing if they split it with several market makers as opposed to one, just because the deltas for the market maker keep loading up, right?
Yeah.
And for like smaller trenches, it's easier that way. So pretty much everyone works together, which is it's a nice dynamic. That's honestly one of the things that I miss about Paradigm, just trying to work all together into this price discovery and like figuring out for this size what is like the right thing.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And so another sort of venue here is the DeFi options market is starting to develop. Have you looked at that at all? Do you have any opinions on DeFi options?
Opinions? Yes. Well, so we were actually very early with DeFi options, from all perspectives, from providing liquidity, from investing, from just like helping through any like product design for like new balls or anything like that. I think they are a good product. And I'm hesitating here because last year I was a big advocate, actually. Last year it was one of the things I tweeted the most about, and they made call over writing systematically very easy and very open to like retail traders. So, they don't have to deal with the options chain, which can be very complicated or cumbersome to understand and use, and also like selecting what the right strike is, right? So that makes it very easy. For market maker, it's just like easy flow as well. There's been some, we wrote, Sam from our team wrote a paper about, or a quick research piece about how all the DOVs expire every day at the same time. And then the auctions happen also at the same time. So you could see like a small difference involved there that traders took advantage of, and then they just like unload on their bid. And because of that, there's been changes over the past few months on when expiries and new options happen with the DOVs, and now it's like kind of spread through the week, so that doesn't happen, right? So yeah, that's the point here. Like, it's a great product. It's still very early. I think we've come a long way, but I still think there's still a lot of work to do. One of the biggest negatives for me is the retail customers. They won't hedge their delta, right? So it's really good while it's working, but the moment that you get called on that option, because the market is pumping or whatever, you lose a lot of the yield that you have accumulated so far, right? So one of the conversations around why depositing to DOB is better than staking directly, it was because technically, or in general, you get better yield from call overriding than directly like staking, right? That was one of them. But turns out that last year, in the end, staking was better just because of one or two events that happened through the year that completely slashed everyone's yields, right? So if you're able to like get out of those before it happens, great. You probably made like extra 10-20%. But if not, yeah, that's one of the things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you're in a cash secured put for like Luna or whatever, that didn't work out too well. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
and then, what do you think are sort of the pain points in crypto options, crypto vol space in general? Like, what do you think is sort of the next thing to overcome?
Hmm. Yeah, I think. Oh, fortunately, we've lost a lot of players over the past 6 months,
Mm.
or the last 6 months. Um, Obvious reasons. A lot of them had capital in FTX, and then others, whatever they lost, it was just hard to recover. So it's easier to just shut it down. But so one will be like just getting these funds back. I don't think those are people that are scared. Just people that now I guess
Mm.
everyone is like fundraising somehow to keep on going. But one is that said, the volumes have been like pretty good in spite of that. I think last week was one of Paradigm's best days ever, like best weeks ever. So but that goes together with volatility. And the other one is just together with that is just finding new funds to come into the space, into the crypto space, right?
Mm.
I would say on average there's about 100 active accounts, that month-to-month institutional accounts. I'm not looking at the retail right now, but from a super perspective, there's like 100, 150 accounts. And those haven't really changed over the past 12 to 18 months. Maybe we've added 10, 20 more, but not enough to see that much of a growth on the options side.
Mm.
Options, I believe, it's just 0.4% of all the volume that goes through crypto if you put together into the same bag perps, futures, and options, right? And and if you look directly into traditional markets, options is much, much bigger than anything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if in crypto we'll ever see the same balance or the same like options volume being the same, just as big as in traditional finance as it is in crypto,
Mm.
because we have perps, right? And perps is a very elegant and easy way to hedge. So, but I do think there should be a bit more of an increase. For that to happen, we just need to find more options trader. I think options is also a product that it feels complex. It feels scary because of, vols, Greeks, and just a lot of things to look into at once, right? And so that's what's like pushing people away a little bit. And the only people or the people that know the most about it are the ones that are like stepping out of the industry now as well, right?
Mm.
So a lot of the Chicago desks and a lot of the London ones that were like dipping their toes into options, right now they're either pausing or reducing their exposure a little bit. So we're back to like the most native ones, or maybe some other ones as well. But like I think it's gonna be a little bit stuck right now until we see a bit more of regulatory push here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that the FTX sort of fiasco is slowing down the growth of the option market. I mean, you could make an argument that options are more interesting, but I get what you're saying. Like
Yeah,
a lot of players got hurt on
yeah.
that, and so they're just not
I
around.
do think, I do think, well, CME has done really well
Mm.
over the past 2 3 months. I feel like a lot of the counterparties that traded with like desks in the US, whether that's at LedgerPrime or Genesis, now they're going to CME probably because that's a safe exchange for them to trade on.
Mm.
It's the most regulated one in terms of not more than LedgerX, but at least they have margin. So that's easier for the trader. But then I do think that once LedgerX gets the amendment of the license to include margin, we'll see a big difference or a big shift within the regulatory exchanges scene.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. LedgerX and the margin becomes quite interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so, what would you say? If you have any advice to someone who starting a career like yours, or what would you say are some lessons you might have learned along the way, and some skills that you wish? For me, coding. I wish I already knew more coding. Obviously, you did CS and finance. So, what other skills do you think would be useful in a career like yours?
It's never enough, honestly. I wish I knew, probably at degree, but I use it as much as, I don't know, literally, I barely use it at all.
Mm.
But it's just helpful to understand or like do any code review or anything like that, right? Like that definitely helps. But um, I guess I wish I had a bit more of traditional finance experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the same time, what's helped me the most balance that lack of experience is partnering with the right people and finding the right mentors, right? So for me, people like Anan or Miki or Shilan, Josh Lim, right, or from my team band directly. So those are people that I can rely on, and even feel comfortable asking stupid questions that maybe in the open it feels like, oh, this girl doesn't know what she's talking about. So you just, you have to be comfortable sticking with someone else about it, because especially when you're like so involved with like the crypto scene only, there's other things from like traditional finance that like you don't really know they exist unless something happens that make them come to the news, right? So at least that's something that I guess an advice or something I wish for someone that is looking for more traditional background. Just make sure to partner with someone or find a mentor there that can help you out. And then one thing that helps me a lot as well is just writing, right? Like one of especially like when I was looking at like hedging or looking for like new counterparties to bring into the OTC DEX for LedgerPrime, one of the things, like one of the main conversations is like, let's hedge your exposure, right? Especially when you speak with VCs and to understand better their product or their needs. I've never even like shared this with them or with anyone internally within the team, but to me it helped me a lot write down what I want to say, how I want to say it, and come up with like different drawings. The small things, small tricks that have been helpful for me. And then at the very beginning, for anyone that wants to come into the space, I would say just go to as many events as you can. And with events, I feel like those have changed a little bit now, because now all the events feel like very party mode, which gets a little annoying personally. But like at the very beginning, 2017, I used to go to all the BitDevs events, all the Women in Blockchain events, like all of this more, hey, there's a panel. After the panel, there's going to be like 1 hour of pizza and Q&A, and you get to mingle with the speakers and with whoever comes here. And those things are events that I don't know if they exist anymore now, but if they do, I would recommend people to go to for sure, because they can put you like many miles ahead.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and you guys are hearing it from the master networker over here, so this is good advice. Um, Personal kind of questions before we wrap up here. So, like, what do you like to do for fun outside of work, and do you have any personal growth goals?
Nice. What do I do for fun? I picked up kitesurfing recently.
Nice.
And I don't know if that's like for fun or not, because I don't get to do it everywhere. I do try to do it as much as I can, I guess, but haven't done it in a while now. But yeah, that's one that I've enjoyed a lot. There's actually a big kitesurfing community in crypto. So yeah, that's another way to connect with more people.
Yeah,
But
this.
other than that, I love running as well. So yeah, just try to be, for us that we're just like sitting inside with computers for so long. Anything I can do like outside, yeah, sign me up. I'm a very outdoorsy person.
That is awesome. Yeah, Sean Douglas, the CEO of Amber Data, is a big kite surfer as well. Yeah,
He
so that's funny.
is,
Yeah,
yes,
so
yes.
you
He's
guys might
actually
see
one
each
of the
other.
people that kind of encouraged me to start kitesurfing.
That's
So a
fantastic.
little shout out to him. Yes, yeah. We need to get you now in the water as well and kitesurfing with us.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on. This is super interesting. I think your perspective is very valuable. I'm sure listeners learned a lot, including myself. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Anyone else?